to some degree, but incredible winds up above the ocean. I mean, matching the spectacular Category 5 winds on down at the sea surface.
Disaster preparedness protocols have reached maximum urgency across Jamaica as an extraordinarily powerful tropical cyclone barrels toward the island with unprecedented ferocity. Current satellite imagery depicts a well-defined circulation with exceptionally cold cloud tops surrounding the eye, characteristics typical of the strongest hurricane classifications. The atmospheric phenomenon has demonstrated remarkable intensification over recent hours, with central pressure readings dropping substantially from 946 millibars to 917 millibars. Coastal communities face grave dangers from storm surge inundation, while mountainous regions brace for catastrophic rainfall totals, potentially exceeding 500 millimeters. Authorities emphasize that protective actions must be completed immediately as tropical storm force winds will begin affecting southern coastal areas by midday Monday. As of Monday, October 27th, during the early morning hours, meteorological tracking indicates significant developments. Continuous monitoring throughout the day will provide essential updates regarding this evolving situation. Hurricane Melissa continues its progression overnight, displaying notable westward motion that has been observed over recent days. The critical question remains regarding how far westward the system will travel before initiating its anticipated northward turn. Recent observations allow for more precise impact assessments across various regions. Impact predictions have been adjusted downward for eastern areas while being raised for western locations. A detailed breakdown covering each affected region follows, beginning with Jamaica and extending to potential consequences for eastern Cuba, portions of the Bahamas, the Turks and Caicos Islands, and increasing precipitation across Haiti. The storm maintains a generally westward trajectory, though analysis reveals a gradual northward component developing. The system is beginning to gain latitude, indicating a shift toward a more northerly direction compared to pure westward movement. Signs of this directional change include a noticeable deceleration. Current forward speed measures 6 kilometers per hour or 3 miles per hour. Tropical systems typically slow dramatically when beginning to turn, though additional westward drift remains possible. Recent satellite imagery shows subtle hints of this northerly turn commencing. The intense core, visible as bright white coloring on satellite imagery, represents the area where catastrophic rainfall and devastating winds will impact. All Jamaican territory faces imminent impacts of significant magnitude. Preparations have been implemented accordingly. The timeline for these events has extended slightly due to the westward movement, though a frontal system traversing the southeastern United States plays a crucial role. This front influences the hurricane's path, causing it to turn rather than continuing westward indefinitely. Temporary westward motion continues, but clear indicators of the curve are emerging. Conditions deteriorate substantially throughout the latter portion of today. Landfall across Jamaica occurs late tonight or during the early hours of tomorrow.
So 165 miles per hour is the measurement from the hurricane hunters, just creeping along at 3 miles per hour. And because the water is...
Subsequently, the system advances tomorrow night into eastern Cuba, specifically through the Guantanamo Bay region, before potentially approaching Long Island or Crooked Island. Careful monitoring of the Bahamas continues, with particular attention to wind conditions across the Turks and Caicos Islands and additional rainfall especially affecting the Haitian Peninsula. Current conditions show hurricane warnings displayed in red. The system has intensified to Category 5 status at this time. Category 5 hurricanes frequently experience fluctuations as the eye structure collapses and rebuilds. These extremely large and powerful systems exhibit natural variations. Landfall will occur as either a Category 4 or Category 5 hurricane. Current wind speeds reach 160 miles per hour or 260 kilometers per hour within the core. Atmospheric pressure has dropped significantly. Yesterday's pressure reading stood at 946 millibars at one point, declining to 941 millibars as strengthening occurred. This morning's pressure measurement has fallen to 917 millibars. This alarming decrease confirms the system's intensification to Category 5 status. The storm center currently sits 205 kilometers or 130 miles south-southwest of Kingston. Regarding wind conditions, sheltering in place throughout the day becomes necessary. At 11 o'clock this morning, northern sections experience minimal wind activity. Some residents may question the storm's location and proximity. However, conditions change dramatically around midday today. Southern coastal areas begin experiencing winds approaching 70 miles per hour. The dangerous core becomes evident at this stage. Southern coastlines receive impacts first, followed by intensifying conditions overnight. By 2 o'clock in the morning, the most dangerous core affects areas throughout the region.
So warm and deep there, it's stirring up water, which may be holding it back a little bit, believe it or not, but there is very warm water.
The storm center attempts landfall tomorrow morning between 4 and 7 o'clock, potentially near Black River or Treasure Beach. This positioning places the intense core in that vicinity. Kingston and eastern areas present some uncertainties worth noting. The center brings dangerous winds, with intense activity visible in yellow coloring on models. Green shading may appear as well, though forecast models slightly underestimate the true Category 5 intensity. Satellite observations confirm stronger winds than models suggest. By 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, northern coastal regions experience hurricane conditions as the system departs. Current slow movement will worsen before peak impacts arrive tonight. Landfall occurs by early tomorrow morning. Severe impacts continue through the first half of tomorrow before improvement begins as departure occurs. Relief comes late Tuesday evening. The critical window has arrived. Safe locations must be occupied now. Many areas currently experience relatively afterside, calm conditions. However, as rain bands advance, particularly across southern zones, tropical storm impacts arrive first, followed by hurricane conditions tonight. Between 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock this afternoon, the center maintains position while heavy rainfall begins moving inland. This precipitation could deliver catastrophic accumulations exceeding 500 millimeters. The storm center's position shows all areas dealing with heavy rainfall in red shading. Extremely dangerous winds concentrate in the core. Specific mapping of extreme wind locations provides maximum detail. Black River
underneath. So the analysis by the scientists that look at this is, yes, they may get some cooling from the slow movement, but not a lot. On 900...
Very dangerous winds affect Spanish Town, St. Anne's, Falmouth, and Montego Bay, sweeping southward before lifting northward. Surge impacts affect Milk River through Black River. Tomorrow morning, the center remains along the northern coast with dangerous winds surrounding it. Heavy rainfall creates mudslide conditions with high probability. These concerns have been addressed in advance preparations. Departure begins. Subsequently, though northeastern coastal areas, potentially spared initially, may experience impacts on the storm's backside. Kingston faces interesting dynamics. If the storm passes westward as currently forecast, Kingston experiences the less intense left side. However, should westward movement continue beyond expectations, Kingston could encounter the dangerous right side with catastrophic winds and rainfall. Current modeling suggests Kingston receives strong tropical storm to low-end Category 1 hurricane conditions rather than the catastrophic core. This represents somewhat fortunate positioning given the circumstances. However, rainfall remains significant regardless, with 150 to 250 millimeters expected. Flood potential exists throughout Kingston. Preparation for tropical storm force winds becomes essential, though the worst-case scenario of the catastrophic core making direct impact appears unlikely based on current projections. Nevertheless, all Jamaica faces significant consequences. Rainfall totals present staggering projections. 500 to 600 millimeters across large portions of Jamaica appears likely, with isolated areas potentially receiving 800 to 900 millimeters. These amounts trigger devastating floods and mudslides. Record-breaking rainfall totals seem probable. Even conservative estimates of 400 millimeters represent extreme quantities. Kingston faces 150 to 250 millimeter accumulations, creating significant flooding potential across lower elevation areas.
8 millibar pressure, just incredible. All right, there's the close-up on it, and you can make out that it's leaning a little bit left. Actually, the
higher terrain areas receive enhanced totals as elevation amplifies precipitation. Coastal flooding adds another dimension. Storm surge along southern coastlines could reach 2 to 4 meters above normal tide levels. This life-threatening surge occurs in addition to wave action. Northern coastlines face surge of 1 to 2 meters. These waters push inland, compounding rainfall, flooding. Wave heights offshore climb to 8 to 12 meters, with isolated waves reaching 15 meters. Approaching or remaining near coastal waters during this period proves extremely dangerous. Eastern Cuba preparations intensify for major hurricane impacts. Guantanamo Province and surrounding areas brace for the approaching system. Hurricane conditions arrive tomorrow night. Continuing into Wednesday, winds may reach Category 3 or 4 intensity, depending on the storm's exact track and intensity at that time. Rainfall totals of 300 to 500 millimeters appear likely, triggering floods and mudslides. Coastal flooding affects both southern and northern shorelines. The southeastern Bahamas require monitoring as the system lifts northward Wednesday into Thursday. Crooked Island and Long Island face potential direct impacts should westward drift continue slightly more than forecast. Hurricane conditions remain possible. Ackland's Island, Mayaguana, and Great Inagua Island warrant close attention. The Turks and Caicos Islands face tropical storm conditions as a minimum, with hurricane-force winds possible depending on proximity. Rainfall of 100 to 250 millimeters brings flooding concerns. Haiti continues experiencing relentless rainfall.
Google model has shown that before it would do that and then turn back on up into the southwest coast of Jamaica, and then a corridor.
The system stalled over Hispaniola initially, producing days of rain across the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Additional rainfall pushes into Haiti's peninsula region. Accumulations of 200 to 400 additional millimeters compound already saturated conditions. Catastrophic flooding and mudslides remain ongoing. Communities remain cut off. The humanitarian situation deteriorates further with each passing hour. Puerto Rico's western regions may catch outer Ocean 16 rain bands producing localized flooding. Rainfall probabilities range from 30 to 40%. The United States and British Virgin Islands face 30 to 40% rain chances from peripheral bands. The Cayman Islands appear spared from impacts, with the system tracking eastward of their position. No monitoring is required at this time. Throughout the Lesser Antilles, conditions remain relatively benign. Trinidad and Tobago face isolated shower possibilities. Barbados through St. Lucia hold 20% rain chances. Grenada through St. Vincent and the Grenadines see 20 to 30% isolated shower probabilities. Martinique and Dominica maintain 30% chances. Guadeloupe holds similar probabilities. Antigua and Barbuda face 20 to 30% chances. St. Kitts and Nevis, along with Montserrat, show 30% probabilities. Anguilla and St. Barthélemy hold 20% chances. St. Martin, Saba, and St. Eustatius face 40% chances from outer rain bands.
On across that island, but I guess a little bit of good news overall. I mean, the people that are going to be in the way of this, it's just hard to imagine.
Belize maintains low rain chances of 20 to 30%. Aruba, Curacao, and Bonaire hold approximately 20% chances. Guyana faces 30% probabilities over upcoming days. Suriname holds 20% chances. Costa Rica and Panama see rain chances decreasing to 70% today. Nicaragua holds 50% chances. Honduras shows 40% probabilities over coming days. Guatemala and El Salvador range from 30 to 40%. Mexico City holds 20% shower chances. The Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico faces 30% passing shower probabilities. Northern Colombia through northern Venezuela maintains 50% rain chances. Bermuda requires attention for later this. Initially, rainfall arrives from the frontal system moving through the southeastern United States. Subsequently, Hurricane Melissa's proximity determines potential impacts. Current projections suggest the system passes close enough to bring tropical storm conditions by Thursday night or Friday. Exact details remain uncertain at this range. Some forecast models, including advanced artificial intelligence systems, project the storm passing just south of or directly over Bermuda. Hurricane conditions remain possible. Close monitoring continues. The atmospheric pattern driving these events involves frontal systems moving through North America.
But Kingston will be not in the worst of it, it looks like. But the heavy rain is already moving into the island, and we're kind of blocked there because there are...
A front currently traversing the southeastern United States initiates the hurricane's northward turn. These frontal boundaries were identified approximately 1 week ago as critical factors. This particular front creates a pathway, allowing the hurricane to lift northward and become entrained. A second front provides additional steering influence. Autumn weather patterns introduce complexity compared to summer months. Multiple frontal systems interact with tropical systems, creating challenging forecast scenarios. Summer patterns typically prove more straightforward. These fronts guide the storm northward Wednesday and Thursday. By Thursday night, proximity to Bermuda becomes a concern. Various forecast models show slightly different scenarios, though consensus indicates a close approach. Atlantic Canada may require attention further downstream. This represents an extended range consideration requiring additional time to clarify. The central message remains clear. Jamaica faces a direct hurricane strike from a Category 4 or 5 system. Record-breaking rainfall produces historic flooding. Extreme winds cause widespread destruction. Sheltering in place becomes mandatory as conditions deteriorate. Worst weather arrives late today, tonight, and through the first half of tomorrow. Eastern Cuba prepares for major hurricane conditions. The southeastern Bahamas and Turks and Caicos Islands monitor the approaching threat.
Mountains right in there that the radar doesn't go over, so the moisture actually goes farther. Here you can see, obviously, the eye. And if you look at that really...
Haiti endures continued rainfall and flooding. Understanding exists that nighttime storms prove more frightening. Wind noise intensifies anxiety. If a relative calm period occurs this evening before the worst conditions arrive, encouraging rest during that window may help, particularly for children. The storm then lifts northward toward Cuba as forecast. Strong tropical storm winds persist at times across portions of Haiti. Relentless rainfall continues, having begun earlier in the Dominican Republic and Haiti. By Wednesday morning, hurricane-force winds, shown in red, approach very close to the Turks and Caicos Islands. Crooked Island and Long Island remain under watch because additional westward movement could result in direct impacts. The system then moves into the Atlantic. Deeper into Wednesday, Jamaica's worst conditions arrive tonight, though flooding and mudslides begin during the day, particularly across higher terrain and along the southern coast with increasing rainfall and wind. Safe shelter locations must be occupied. The duration will prove lengthy. Tonight becomes extraordinarily difficult. Relief comes gradually through tomorrow. Between now and then, the worst conditions move in. Record floods, record rainfall amounts, and extreme winds are anticipated. Communications disruption occurs. Community isolation develops. Information regarding post-storm conditions will be distributed as available.
Closely, you can kind of make out the green area trying to move around the eye. That might be an indication that there is an outer wall trying to form.
Wave heights demonstrate the system's power. Storm surge proves deadly. Coastal zones where surge moves inland face extreme danger. Ocean water advances inland with waves compounding the surge. Measurements shown in STOF meters and feet illustrate the threat. The frontal system coming off the southeastern United States generates high seas unrelated to Melissa. Melissa's wave field becomes evident separately. By Wednesday, extremely dangerous seas develop as the hurricane moves into the southeastern Bahamas. Subsequently, the system progresses into the Atlantic. Bermuda's proximity to the track determines impact severity. The storm's structure changes before reaching Bermuda. However, a fast-moving hurricane remains possible, bringing potential hazardous conditions. The directional change results from frontal interaction. This mechanism was identified approximately 1 week ago in earlier forecasts. These fronts prove crucial. One system brings initial rainfall to Bermuda and portions of the United States. This front creates the opening, allowing the hurricane to lift and become incorporated into the flow. These fronts guide the storm northward by Thursday night, when Bermuda proximity becomes relevant. Some models, including advanced computational forecasts, show the system passing just south or very close to Bermuda. Details continue evolving. Atlantic Canadian regions may require attention further ahead. This represents extended range considerations. Jamaica faces an approaching hurricane. Uncertainties exist regarding specific wind distributions. Rainfall expectations are established. Sheltering in place proves essential. Whatever develops, hopes exist for favorable breaks. Perhaps an eye-wall replacement cycle occurs before landfall, temporarily weakening the system slightly. Time will reveal outcomes. Currently, a Category 5 hurricane sits on the doorstep with clear signs of gaining latitude and lifting northward. Throughout the broader Caribbean region, isolated shower activity continues across various islands, with probabilities ranging from 20 to 50% depending on location. Northern Bahamas remain unaffected. Over 700 islands comprise the Bahamas, with only southeastern sections facing impacts. Central Bahamas require monitoring. Southeastern Bahamas face the primary threat. The Turks and Caicos appear destined for tropical storm conditions with borderline hurricane conditions possible depending on exact tracking. The Dominican Republic, especially southern coastal areas, continues experiencing additional flooding. Haiti faces ongoing additional flooding after days of persistent rainfall. All attention focuses on extreme eastern Cuba, where major Hurricane Melissa tracks. Smaller nations, including Belize, show 20 to 30% rain chances. Aruba, Curaçao, and Bonaire hold approximately 20% chances. Guyana maintains 30% probabilities. Suriname faces 20% chances. Costa Rica and Panama see 70% chances today, declining to 50%. Nicaragua holds 50%. Honduras shows 40% over upcoming days. Guatemala and El Salvador range 30 to 40%. Mexico City holds 20%. The Yucatan Peninsula shows 30%. Northern Colombia through northern Venezuela maintains 50%. Bermuda initially receives rain from the United States frontal system before Melissa's potential impacts later this week. Direct hurricane impact for Jamaica at Category 4 or 5. Intensity during landfall brings record rainfall, flooding, and winds. Eastern Cuba takes action. The southeastern Bahamas and Turks and Caicos Islands prepare as Melissa eventually lifts northward. Safe positioning throughout the day proves essential. Worst conditions late.